everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Beyond Limits podcast. I'm your host, Eli Shalita.
And I'm your co-host, Greg Vaughn.
And today we have a great topic for you. We want to give you 10 tips on how to decrease anxiety. The reason why we're talking about this topic is because it's so very relevant. In the United States alone, they did a study, and they found out that over 70% of the adults in the United States, they feel stress or anxiety on a daily basis. And since they're so prevalent in our society today, we can't just say, well, I'm not going to do anything about it and I'm going to stress myself to death. No, we want to fight them. And the way to fight them is to do the right things to help us de-stress. So, Greg and I have come up with 10 tips on how to decrease your anxiety and stress. Which brings me to point number 1, and that is regular exercise. Exercise is one of the most important things you could ever do to combat stress. Now here's what's so cool about it. When you put physical stress on your body, somehow that relieves your mental stress. Statistics show that people that do exercise regularly, Greg, are less likely to experience anxiety and stress than those who don't. And here are some scientific reasons behind that. Number 1 is that exercise lowers your stress hormone, which is known as the cortisol. And so not only does it do that, but it also releases endorphins, which are the body's happy chemicals that improves your mood and acts as a natural painkiller. And the second thing is that exercising helps your sleep. It helps you to have a better, more quality sleep, which also helps you overcome some of those stress hormones. And number 3, what exercise does to you is that it gives you confidence. See, when you exercise regularly, you're going to feel more competent psychologically speaking, not just physically, but more psychologically competent and more confident as a person, which in turn gets you to feel better. So you may be asking, is there a particular activity that helps me accomplish what you talked about? Well, it's up to you. Whatever you choose. If you like yoga, then take up yoga. If you like weight training, by all means, go ahead and do it. But whatever you choose, you got to be consistent to it and do what you can do. Now, I do want to point out that there are some statistics that show that walking or jogging, anything that involves repetitive movements of large muscle groups, can help you that much more to relieve some stress. Tip number 2, which by the way, I have found to be useful in my own personal life, and that is reducing my caffeine intake. See, caffeine is a stimulant, and it's not just found in coffee. It's found in tea, it's found in chocolate, and of course, a lot of us know it's found in energy drinks. And so what happens is when you consume caffeine, specifically in high doses, that can increase your anxiety level. Statistically speaking, coffee can be healthy in moderation, but if you overuse it and abuse it, it becomes unhealthy. So when consuming caffeine, you got to consume it with moderation. So take it in moderation or eliminate it altogether. And I promise you, that in itself is going to help you have less stress and anxiety.
And that brings us to point number 3. So when you're dealing with stress and anxiety, sometimes it's good to talk to somebody, but even more than that, we need to write it down. Pull a notepad or your phone out and write down. Some people like journaling, and they do it every day. They pull out how they feel, what they've gone through. But the main thing is to focus on the positives. And then as you're writing them down, think to yourself, ask this question to yourself: is this really worth stressing over? Is this something that I can take care of later? And so when you write it down and you ask these questions to yourself, you'll feel a weight being lifted off your shoulders.
Which brings us to tip number 4, and that is spending quality time with our friends or family. See, social support from friends or family can help you and I get through stressful times. Being part of a friend network gives you a sense of belonging and self-worth that can help you through whatever time, especially tough times. As a matter of fact, there's a particular study that found that women spending time with friends and children helped release their oxytocin, which is basically a natural stress reliever. It's a chemical that we produce when we bond with one another. And this effect, scientifically speaking, is called the tend and befriend effect. And it is quite literally the opposite of fight or flight response. Another interesting study found that men or women with the fewest social connections were more likely to suffer from depression and anxiety. So what does that tell me? Well, have some friends, spend some time with them, and you will notice that it is going to positively affect your stress and anxiety level.
The next tip on dealing with anxiety and stress is number 5, to laugh. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to laugh about stuff every once in a while. You know, it's really hard to feel anxious when you're laughing. It's good for your health, and there are a few ways it may help relieve stress. First, it'll relieve your stress response, and it relieves tension by relaxing your muscles. You know, in the long term, laughter can also help improve your immune system and your mood. A study among people with cancer found that people with the laughter intervention group experienced more stress relief than those who are simply distracted. So try watching a funny TV show or some kind of comedy, or hang out with friends who make you laugh. You know, there's a YouTuber that I watch specifically, and I'll tell you, their name is More J Stew. Their motto is to laugh daily. They go out of their way to try to make us laugh, and they have a good time at doing it. And that we need to have that same experience. We need to go out of our way to make us and the people around us laugh.
And this brings us to tip number 6, and that is learn to say no. In short, try not to take on more than you can handle. Saying no is one way to control any stress that comes your way. You owe it to yourself. If you feel overwhelmed, if you feel anxious, sometimes doing multitasking is not what you want. Sometimes saying no is the only appropriate thing you can do. Why? Because you're trying to take care of your mental health. And if you keep overwhelming yourself by taking on responsibility after responsibility, then you're going to find yourself burned out, uninterested, and unmotivated. So just learn to say no.
And that brings us to point number 7. We've got to learn to avoid procrastination. Another way to take control of your stress is to stay on top of your priorities and stop procrastinating. Procrastination can lead you to act reactively, leaving you scrambling to catch up. This can cause stress, which negatively affects your health and sleep quality. Get in the habit of making a to-do list organized by priority. Give yourself realistic deadlines and work your way down the list. Work on the things that need to get done today and give yourself chunks of uninterrupted time, as switching between tasks or multitasking can be stressful itself.
Tip number 8, and that is cuddle and intimate time. Cuddling, kissing, hugging, or even having sex, they all have a way to help you relieve your stress. What it does when you engage in any intimate activity, research shows that it helps release the oxytocin levels in your system, which again is the bonding chemical. It's the happy chemical in your body that is released specifically after sex. And from other statistics, when after a mother feeds her baby, that is the bonding chemical that is released after doing so. And so when you kiss or hug or cuddle or even sex, what it does to you, it makes you feel happy. That's why you're happy after sex. But what's happening is you're releasing that oxytocin from your system. And what it does also invariably is that it lowers cortisol, which is the body's stress hormone. So if you want to reduce your anxiety and stress, I suggest you get yourself a girlfriend, a partner, and get going.
Tip number 9 is to listen to soothing music. Listening to music can have a very relaxing effect on the body. Slow-paced instrumental music can induce the relaxation process, your response, by helping lower blood pressure and your heart rate, as well as stress hormones. There's all kinds of music that you can listen to, but the fact is, just listening to something will help you and calm you. Even nature sounds can also be very calming. This is why they're often incorporated into relaxation and meditation music.
And our final tip of the day, that is tip number 10, and that is considering supplements. There are some supplements on the market that do help reduce your stress and anxiety levels. Several of them on the market. Again, realize that they're just supplements. They're not miracle working drugs. They're just there to supplement what you're already doing. I personally taken ZMA, zinc, and magnesium pills to help me sleep better at night and optimize my hormone productions. I've taken melatonin to also help me go to sleep, and it made me feel better the next morning. I've taken 5-HTP. There's a study about omega-3 fatty acids. It's a medical study that showed medical students that received omega-3 supplements, they experienced 20% reduction in their anxiety symptoms. So there's something to it. Again, it's not a miracle working drug, but it does help reduce some of the stress and anxiety levels. Now, some of these supplements can and may interact with your medication that you're taking, or even cause you to have a side effect. So you definitely want to consult your physician or a doctor if you have any medical condition prior to taking them.
So here's the bottom line. Although stress and anxiety may arise in your workplace or your personal life, there are many simple ways to reduce the pressure you feel. These tips often involve getting your mind away from the source of stress. Exercise, mindfulness, music, and physical intimacy can all work to relieve anxiety, and they will improve your overall quality of life. As we wrap up today's talks, we just want to say thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you hit the like button. And if you desire to hear more about relieving stress and anxiety, please subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next podcast.